Do you ever find yourself in a situation where you have to produce an epic video with subject matter that just isn't that epic? Well, in this video, we're going to take you behind the scenes on how we did just that. We were working on a commercial project for a long-standing client of ours, D3 Services, who specialize in dent repair and alloy wheel refurbishment. Now, let's face it, dents aren't particularly sexy, right? It's just a dent. So what we needed to do going into this was elevate them above any other dent company that exists in the area. And we knew we wanted to create a glossy and premium looking video about the process and attention to detail that they put into every dent that comes through the doors. And a huge factor that was going to make that possible and make it more immersive and different was going to be the use of light, which is perfect because the sponsor of this video is COLBOR lights. But more about them later on. So let's start from the top. Our brief was to produce a 1-minute overview video of their dent repair service, and we wanted to put that onto social media for various ad campaigns and also onto their website too. It was really important that we got across that attention to detail, and like I've already said, we wanted to really position this brand above any other dent repair company in the area, so we wanted to make sure it looked glossy and premium. So the location for the project was all done on site at their unit, and we actually decided to not utilize their bigger space where they would normally repair the dents and instead use the painting booth to move the car into. The reason we wanted to do that is because we wanted to feel this kind of exclusivity. When your car's being looked after, it's brought into its separate booth and it's really looked at with no other distractions. We wanted the focus to be solely on that dent and the repair that the team were doing on it. We felt that if we had used their wider open unit space, things would have just got lost in the background and it would have felt a lot more like a stereotypical repair garage that you might see out there in any given industrial estate. There wasn't much space for pre-production either, so we just had a little walk around the day before and we were walking through what kind of visual ideas do we think could bring this to light. So we first of all spoke around attaching the camera to the side of the car, so when they drove into the booth, we would be able to see the dent reflecting, and that's where the story would start. He's effectively caressing the side of the car, he's feeling for the dent and really looking into that level of detail before turning the lights off and then actually performing work on the dent itself. Now, the production value on this project was actually quite small, so we had to go with a nimble team, and I'll talk you through some of the equipment choices that we decided to use as well in a moment. So it was just going to be myself and Will for this production. Will's a great camera guy. He's worked with us for a while now, and his role particularly on this project was going to be having a second pair of hands as a runner, also pulling focus when we needed to, helping with lighting, and also just chipping in with his creativity as well. And that was a real important factor for us, that we can smoothly move through the shoot and just make sure we're getting all the shots that we need to and we're not actually missing anything at the end of the day. Two creative minds, in my opinion, are often better than just one as well. So far we've done the entry into the booth shots, the kind of like quite dynamic attention to detail stuff with the harsh lighting. That's been good but challenging. Obviously, you know, filmmaking is all about problem solving, not quite having the right focal length on the cameras and starting to try and find adapters and things that we can use to actually still mimic the same shot. But I think it's turned out really nicely on the whole. We're about to bring in some of our own lights now to kind of help fill the subjects, get a lot of detail shots of the dent. Because of the production budget, we actually only did a very small bit of pre-production, so we went around the workshops the day before just to walk through some of our creative ideas, which inevitably led to our equipment choices. So we knew that we wanted the car to drive into the booth to begin with. So we of course had to use our car rig where we placed the camera on the side of the car to actually get that dent as it drove past our pre-set up lights. So you could really see the full reflection of the damage that was done. It obviously helped that we had a beautiful car. It was a Bentley, so that just made the overall video look much more premium as well and really exclusive to the services that they offer. Now, there's not that much space, as you can see, in the paint booth itself, which is why I didn't decide to put the FS7 onto a big rig or anything like that. I decided just to have it handheld or on my shoulder for the most part, so that we can just focus on getting those shots and fitting into all of these tight gaps. I feel like sometimes when you start to build out your cameras and make them bigger, it's harder to get those more creative angles and get them into kind of smaller positions as well. So that's why we decided to go quite small with the setup on the whole. Now, one of the difficulties we found in this shoot was really focusing on that dent and actually getting the light to reflect from it. You kind of think it would be quite easy to do and it would show up quite nicely. But also this car was so shiny, it was so clean when it came into them that actually it just reflected everything around it. So we had to be careful with where we put pieces of equipment, and also we kind of had to use the subject's hand from time to time just to point at the dent so we could pull focus onto that dent, and then when they removed their hand we knew that then it would be in focus. But that took a little bit more time than we initially expected just to get that right result, but in the end I think it actually turned out to be really nice. Even though we had this shoot booked in the diary, COLBOR reached out to us asking us if we would test out their CL60 light and also their CL220 light as well. And I must say, I've not only just used it on the shoot that is in this video, but we've been using it now for the last week or two, and I have just fallen in love with these lights. I'll have to apologize in advance if I say their name wrong. Everyone pronounces it slightly differently, it seems. But the only thing I can say is, regardless of the name, they're really good lights. Like, I am actually taken aback. They're also a good price point. I think the bigger one, the 220, is around about $300. And the smaller one, the CL60, is around about $140. And that is a really good price point, I think, for the level of lights that you get, because I like I said, I fall in love with them. I think they're great. And the nicest thing about their messages to us was, in every message they just said, please just tell your audience what you think, because good or bad, it will provide us with information to improve, and it's important that they know. And they haven't been pushy in any sense. They said, here are the key features. If you want to tell your audience, great, but ultimately test them and then tell us what you think. And I don't like to work with brands, as you know, that just want me to push the narrative if I don't truly believe in them. And I think that hopefully kind of shines through a bit more as well. I've had various sponsors like that, and it makes for a much better, honest review, because I could say that they're awful, but actually, I really love them, and I really would use them more. Particularly on this shoot, the smaller one literally fits in the palm of my hand, and that was perfect just to throw in the corner because we haven't got much space, just to get a little bit of fill light maybe, or even just to shine over the top of the subject's shoulder just to make it feel a little bit nicer and give a little bit of a lens flare. I just felt like it really fitted our production nicely. Not to mention, when we came to do the interviews as well, we put the soft boxes on the two lights and we were able to light the subject just really nicely with a small light again in the background, just to provide a bit of depth and something a bit different. And then our main softbox light lighting the subject from the side. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, I'm super impressed. I'll tell you about a few of the features because there's other cool things that we didn't utilize on this shoot that I actually am excited to try out as well. So starting with the big light, that's the CL220. This is adjustable, so you can change the Kelvin on it if you want it slightly warmer or cooler. It's got a load of settings as well if you want it to strobe or emulate fire. And I think that that's a really good point for productions where you need a little bit more of that creativity. With the reflector, it pumps out 105,000 lumens, which makes it super bright. It's also light, which makes it really portable as well. And like I said, on the whole, it feels robust. It feels like it's not going to break easily, and is pretty much everything I'd want out of a light. So super happy with that one. The smaller one, the CL60, I just can't believe how small this is. It runs off USB-C power. That's absolutely insane. If you wanted to plug a battery bank into it, you could do that. Both of the lights have got clips on it to secure the cables, and the CL60 is also RGB, so it allows you to change colors all the way through the RGB spectrum. And again, it's got a load of different inbuilt functions as well, which enables it to strobe, change colors, and all of these other fancy bits and pieces. Now, possibly the coolest thing to come out of a light is the inbuilt NATO notches. What that means is you can have multiple lights, and on the shoots where you need it, you can slide them into one another so it creates one huge light, which is, I think, really good for filmmakers who don't have a high budget. They're just starting out. They buy a light for $140 that does the job, does what they need, and then as they get more clients in and they bring in more money, they buy more lighting. But maybe they still don't buy the bigger lights, they still buy the smaller ones, but you can attach it together. And I think that's a really cool feature that I'm super excited to try out on a few projects that we've got coming up at the end of next month. Having the NATO rail also means that you can attach your V-lock or your power bank to the NATO rail, so you haven't got it just dangling down from your C-stand, and it's all kept together so that you don't pull out any cables and things like that. So like I said, I love them. I think it's been really beneficial. I love the fact that they haven't told me what to say, and they were happy for me to give my own feedback. And I mean, there's nothing that I can really fault, to be honest. So far, I've been using them for a couple of weeks, like I said, and yeah, I think they're good. I don't think there's going to be anything that's going to fault me, to be honest with you. I mean, you can always have brighter lights, of course, but these really do tick the box as far as I'm concerned. So have a look at them. You know how I feel about this. I'd love you guys to support anyone that supports the channel, because it means that we can keep producing bigger and better content as well. So bringing it back to the production now, it was just important for us when we were choosing our equipment that we brought small and nimble bits of equipment that ultimately, when we're walking around this very expensive car, we're not going to damage it because there's not a lot of space in there. And I think everything that we used was perfect, and I wouldn't really have changed much in that sense. If I was to do this all again, and actually one of the challenges that we did face was actually how good the dent repair team were. You know, this car came in with 3 dents, and one of them was fixed, honestly, within a matter of like a minute or two. We didn't even have a chance to set up the shot. And what we didn't want to do was get in their way as well, because some of these things they're using special bits and pieces, and of course they're on a time limit as well. So we didn't want to stop them doing what they were doing, but the speed that they worked at and the level of quality that they actually ended up producing, we were pretty taken back by it. So maybe we should have asked a few more questions initially, got them to talk us through the process, and that's one of the things that I would change if I did this all again. In terms of the actual production side of things, you know, we're always within parameters of what's possible with, you know, production value and various other aspects of the day. And for us, I think I would have liked to have probably worked on the storyboard a little bit more to maybe make more of the shots more dark. The utilization of smoke in the booth as well to really give it that atmospheric kind of background effect. But these things, you know, just weren't possible for our current production, but the things that I would probably push for more in hindsight, to be fair. I think it would have given us a new dimension of the product as a whole. We filmed everything in 50 frames, so we had the ability to slow it down in post if we needed to, because of the fast-paced nature of them repairing the dents and us not wanting to get in the way too much, even though they were really accommodating. For me, I just wanted to make sure I had that ability to slow things down if I needed to later on as well. So as a rule of thumb, if I'm ever unsure if I'm going to need to slow something down or not, I'll just record it at a higher frame rate just so I've got that in the bag. So that's how we took a pretty boring subject and made it into something that we thought was really epic, stood out, looked professional, and the client was really happy. And that ultimately, that's the thing that matters. If you want to see more behind the scenes videos like this, then take a little look at this one here, where we went on a really cool shoot and we transformed our studio to build some real set pieces for a paint company. So take a look at that. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. Till next time, peace.